Okay, back to the drawing we go. So, here we are. We've got our length of timber cut. We've belt sanded or band faced, whatever you want to call it, both ends. Now I'm going to show you how you go about creating a little step down like that, and also how to mark it out, because there is another tool we can use for marking this out. So if we check the drawing, we need to try and identify where is the dimension for this. So to interpret it correctly, we've got a 200mm length. We can see that the slot comes up 155. So to actually work out the missing value there, we've got to do 200 minus 155, which gives us 45mm there for the step down. Then for the depth, we just got to look on the drawing and find there it is 10mm deep. So that's actually half the width of the stock. So I'm going to get myself a tri-square and my steel ruler. I'm going to mark down from one end 45, there we are, from this end here. I'm going to put a little line there, get the tri-square, and I'm going to go straight across like that there. Now, I'm also going to take the line down the sides like this as well, because we need to see the depth as well to mark out. So there we go, so that's the section we're taking off. Now we need to go down the side and we're going to measure halfway. Now you might be thinking, it's going to be tricky to use a tri-square on such a small edge, and it really is. So what we can use instead is this thing called a marking gauge. The marking gauge, you'll see it has like a little spike on here, so we can use that spike to help us mark out halfway on the timber. So to do that, we can just loosen that little dial there and we can slide the stock up and down. And one way you can find halfway on timbers is to have this pretty much tightly done up, and then you just put a mark, turn it around, and if the two marks line up, then you've got it set up correctly. So I'm going to tighten this up. This is basically a tri-square just with a spike instead. So I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to get it lined up there, and I'm going to push out and push out to the end. That makes a mark down the grain, and I can then just put my pencil into there as well, and I can even then mark out the slot that I'm going to try and remove. Now there's a couple of ways of doing this. We could either cut down with a tenon saw and then cut in with a tenon saw that way, but that's, it might work, but we're going to try and be a bit more precise. We're going to tenon saw down, and then we're going to chisel in. I'm going to show you how to use a chisel. So we need our tenon saw again, we need the bench hook again, and we need to set ourselves up securely with the bench hook in the vise, put the stock of material in there, and it's go time. I'm going to start off with my tenon saw. So I'm going to do my same backstrokes. Now this time I need to make sure they're cut on this side, because that is the waste that we are removing there. So I need to have my saw blade on the right side of that cut. Now here we are trying to cut accurately, so I need to make sure that my saw is straight. I'm looking down the top of the blade there and making sure that my blade is straight and it's going absolutely flat as well. Okay, tap tap. So I think we've gone halfway through there. So the next stage is to use the chisel. So what we can do now is put this in the vise vertically, like that there. And we're going to get our marking gauge now, and we're going to put that same halfway line across the end. Now the end grain is harder to mark down because the end of the grain always makes a bit of a mess in terms of marking out, because it curves and it waves around, so it's really hard to actually mark on with a pencil the correct lines there. So to use a chisel, chisels come in all different shapes and sizes. We use it with a mallet like this, and yeah, we've got to pick the appropriate chisel size. So this one is really narrow, and that's far too narrow for the job that we're doing, because it's going to take me loads and loads of hits to get that off. We want to actually get the flattest surface possible, so we're going to use a nice wide chisel here. I'm going to put the chisel vertically like that, with the bevel side facing out, because that will help ping the material off. This is where we can use the grain of the timber to actually help us remove the material. So I'm going to put the chisel down vertically here. I'm going to get my mallet and I'm going to give it a nice firm whack. And you can see that the grain helps us just remove the material. And that's why in some ways this is actually a neater way of doing it than using a saw. So there we go, I can just carry on, get down to my mark there, and tap tap. There we are. And sometimes when there's bits like that, it's just where it's not quite hit the cut we made. Now this cut's not quite straight, so I'm actually just going to do this by hand. You can shave, if you've got a nice sharp chisel, you can actually just shave it off by pushing down firmly like that. There we go. Okay. There. And then we have a nice step down on the material. All right, thank you very much.